The NBA playoffs are about to start, the seeding is getting hot, and there's no better time to get in on the action. If you're looking to wager on these NBA games, head over to betonline.ag on your desktop or mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. All you have to do is use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to get started. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all your updated odds, info, along with player props and new contests throughout the year. It's the best source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and everyone's favorite Vegas, casino, and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so join today and learn why everyone is saying BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Hello and welcome back to the Believe in Timberwolves podcast, part of the Believe Network. I'm your host, Brendan Hedtke, and I am back today with my co-host, Doug West. We are here to talk Wolves. We're actually going to talk about the Final Four as well. And then towards the end of the show, we're going to go through our all NBA teams. Each of us brought our 3 all NBA teams. So it's going to be really interesting to just kind of dive into that, but we'll save that for a little while. First, I want to talk to Doug. We wanted to talk about Final Four, and obviously Doug went to Villanova. They were in the Final Four, did not make the championship game. But last time we talked, they did not play. They hadn't played their Final Four game yet. So I guess we can do a quick little rundown of the first 2 games, and then we can talk about the championship game a little more in depth. But how are you feeling after your Wildcats loss there in that Final Four game?
Well, good to talk with you again, Brendan. And that Final Four game was what I expected. I didn't expect Kansas to come out real quick and go up 10-0. But knowing that, Justin Moore wasn't going to be available, knowing that we were going to be using some guys for longer stretches off the bench, you tend to start wondering. And Kansas came out like men, went up quick 10-0. Nova was able, to have a little run there. Got it. I think they cut it. The closest they got was to 8. But it was just men against, McCormick was just a man inside finishing. And what's his name? Abagobi? Number 30. Number 30
Agbaji?
for them.
Yeah.
Agbaji, yes.
Yeah.
Shooter. He comes out, makes his first 5 threes.
Yeah, he was hot.
6 for 7 from the field. He was just outstanding for them. They just played a great game. We did as much as we could, but, really happy for Villanova and the way they finished up the season. Didn't know what to expect going into it. Guys playing for the first time, Brandon Slater and Eric Dixon, guys who haven't really had a lot of time getting their opportunity. And they just had a solid year, another 30 win season. And you got to be with that outcome as an alum, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, more plays. It's probably at least a much closer game than the 16-point game that it ended up being. But I thought that was a solid game. Like you said, Agbaji. I don't know how to say his first name, and I might not even be saying his last name right. But just coming out,
it sounds better than me.
Just coming out, hitting those threes right away, just kind of, pretty much sealed the deal from the get-go. He was 6 or 7 on the night, and he just did enough damage right away that it didn't really matter. The other game that was played was Duke versus UNC, and earlier in the season, UNC spoiled Coach K's final game at home, and then UNC goes out and spoils his chance at a national championship in his last season. What'd you think about that game against Duke and UNC there? 2 bitter rivals going against each other in the Final Four, which is cool.
2 bitter rivals. Loved the game. Loved both games, actually. I had the chance to coach against Duke in, I think it was 2009, during our run to the Final Four. And it was the first time I had ever, really played against Duke, played against a Duke team, coached against a Duke team. So it was exciting. Looking, 13 years, 12 years later, 13 years later, seeing them again in the Final Four against North Carolina. Great game. if you want to look at a game that looked like an NBA game from beginning to end, it was that game. I mean, there were a lot of pros on the court
Right.
in that game. Again, North Carolina, Caleb Love, strong down the stretch, strong second half. I think he scored 26 points in the second half. Outstanding performance. Just a great basketball game. It was back and forth, for 40 minutes. And it was just a good, solid game. And I was very pleased.
Yeah, that game, like you said, obviously a little bit closer game than the Nova game, but the way that Caleb Love was able to just, dominate that game in the second half was fantastic. I think he ended up with 28 points and scored, I think 26 of them in the second half, which is just crazy. And then you got good minutes out of, RJ Davis played really good in that game. And Manick shot the three well. I think he made 3 of his 6 threes. But even on the Duke side, like Paolo Banchero had himself a nice game, and Wendell Moore played decently. And then Trevor Keels off the bench had a fantastic night too. I think he had like 19 points, but it just wasn't quite enough. And that's how Coach K goes out, is he's losing to his bitter rival. And I don't know, if he'll ever come out with the truth about how he feels about that, but I'm sure he's a little frustrated with that being the fact.
Well, how about the fact that they've played Duke 100? I mean, they played North Carolina 100 times, and it's
100 times
50, and it's 50-50. I mean,
crazy.
how you couldn't write that up. I mean,
right.
You go into it, your last 2 games, you're up 50-48, and you lose 2 games to them to end up tied. I mean, that was just that was amazing there.
Especially when you've been the higher ranked team. I mean, all season, right? You got the more star talent, you got the pros that are going to get drafted this year on your side, and to lose twice to them this year to even up that scores. I mean, that's that's like you couldn't, like you said, you couldn't write something better than that. So.
No, and it's hard. Duke comes in to have, a lot of young players. The North Carolina players have been through some things, in the past few years. But they did have a rookie coach,
right.
but a rookie coach who really, really wants to beat Duke. I mean, you think the players want to beat him? Well, as a former player, knowing about our rivalries we had in college, I know Hubert Davis is sitting there thinking, we have to win this game, especially after getting blown out the first time at Chapel Hill. Yeah. So, that was definitely one of those things.
Yeah, definitely got some revenge from that first game, their first meeting of the season. Got it twice, kind of spoiled the ending there. Let's move on to the championship game, which happened just last night. If I didn't already mention it, we're recording on Tuesday. The Wolves do play tonight. Not sure exactly when this will come out, but so last night was the national championship game between UNC and Kansas, and that game was something else. It was dominated by Kansas right away. You had the comeback by UNC to take, I think, all the way up to like a 16-point lead. And then just the slow demise of UNC in that second half. And then they just couldn't quite claw their way back after Kansas took the lead. So what's your initial reaction to that game?
It was a game of 2 totally different halves. I mean, or you could just put it in 10-minute segments. I mean, the first 10 minutes of the game, it was tight. That last 10 minutes of the first half, I think the score at one point was, I think it was 22-20. And then, at halftime, North Carolina's up, 40-25. And you're looking at Kansas, they look like they had just been, they were in shock. Right. It was shock. And, in that stretch, North Carolina got a lot of easy baskets. They were able to get out in transition, and they made some shots. And then you take the first 10 minutes of the second half. I mean, Kansas came out, and the defensive intensity was just, you could just look at it on the court and know that, their thing was, we have to buckle down defensively and keep them out of the lane. And then to flip it on the offensive side, they just put their heads down and drove the ball. I think it, when they finally took the lead, I think it was like a 30 was it like a 31-10 run, in that second half. And then you go down the last 5 minutes of the game and it's back and forth. It's just a great battle. And then you come down to the last minute of the game, unfortunate the Baycott goes down, hurt there with 35 seconds, but McCormick was he was just a man in there.
He was dominating. That little baby jump hook was
baby jump hook was unstoppable. And then the pursuit of rebounds by both teams was just, outstanding. And I think with Baycott and Manick, you had like one had 16, one had 14. Then you go to the other side, McCormick and Braun. Braun decides to post up Love in the second half, and he's just around the board and just had an outstanding game as well. So it's just a great game. Comes down to the last possession. I couldn't believe my man stepped out of bounds, getting the ball in bounds and give them that opportunity there.
Yeah,
I thought Love was going to knock that shot down.
It kind of looked like he did knock that shot down. Like instant reaction. I'm like, I don't know if that went in, and then you see like how everybody reacts. You're like, okay, it didn't go in. But
right.
That the game was just, like you said, breaking up into those 10-minute chunks. Kansas didn't. I wouldn't say they dominated that first 10-minute chunk, but they did enough to get some separation, and UNC they couldn't hit anything. And then it got to the point where UNC just started hitting everything. Manick just started dropping threes. And then later in the second half, once UNC started to give up their run, I really felt like Armando Baycott was kind of forcing it on the inside. He didn't have a great shooting night. As great as he played defensively, rebounding the ball, like you said, he ended with 15 rebounds. But he shot 13. He shot 13 twos, and he only made 3 of them. So I kind of felt like he was forcing it on the inside there. But he was so valuable to what they were doing on the other side of the floor. But it just felt like that was the turning point where Kansas just made their run back. And Kansas just never backed down. They were just right there, and they took advantage of those missed shots, got rebounds, and they were ready to go.
Yeah, I think if you look at Kansas' last 3 games, they really did a lot on the defensive side of the ball. I can't remember who they played right before they got to the Final Four, but they were down in that game, and a big run in the second half, and again through their defensive intensity. The Villanova game, it was the defensive intensity from the beginning, and you finish up last night. And then, you go back to that Villanova game, the last few times those two have played, the winner of that game has won the championship. So, it's always, it's one of those good things you look at when you're playing. You say, well, we won. So hopefully, that will happen in Kansas. Again, Bill Self gets his second national championship. Very, very, very good team. And, there'll always be a team that's someone you have to deal with.
For sure. I want to talk about the end of the game a little bit. So UNC comes down. They have a decent amount of time left on the clock. And I just felt like they just chucked up some shit. Like they were like, I don't remember who took it. It was like a 35-footer with like 8 seconds left.
I think it was Johnson, the Johnson kid.
Pulled up. They got the rebound, shot another one, couldn't get it. Ball goes out of bounds. I just felt like my first question was, why didn't Hubert Davis call a timeout there? He had at least 1, maybe 2. I just felt like maybe settling down the game, just getting everybody in position, drawing up a play. Then you could still take your shot with 6 seconds left. Hope you get a rebound if you miss it. But it just felt like I'm going to try to hit the shot, and nobody hit it. But I wish Davis would have called that timeout, set his guys up, tried to get something rolling. But obviously he's coaching in the NCAA championship, and I'm coaching 9th grade boys. So obviously there's a stark difference here, but I just wish that he would have used a timeout in that situation.
Well, I think he's going to reflect on that. I think he's going to look back and realize that, I had 2 timeouts, and
right.
As a first year head coach, we talked about, you move over that 6 inches, and right. Now it's, that call is yours. And a lot of things are going through your head, and you're not wanting them to set their defense, and you're hoping that you have have them in a situation where you may have them on their heels and you can get something. Now, once you didn't get anything right away, and once they got that rebound, I thought Manic should have called the timeout.
Right.
But looking back, he didn't. And when Hubert thinks back on that, I'm sure he's going to think about those timeouts and how valuable that could have been.
For sure. I think at the end too, when they did get the ball back, by God's grace, by him stepping out of bounds there, I really do wonder what the final play call was, because I know Caleb Love got the ball, but I'm sure you saw it too, but Manic slips or gets tripped or whatever happened there as he's trying to go out opposite. I mean, it would have been a long pass, but I kind of feel like that's who he's going for. Caleb Love wasn't too hot. Manic had hit some threes. I don't remember what he shot overall. He was 3 for 6 from 3 again in this game. So I wonder what that final play call was and maybe what would have happened. It'll be a what if, if he doesn't trip, what's that look like? But still, if he makes a 3, you still got overtime. Right. And, that's not the game winner. That's just you're fighting for another 4 or 5 minutes to try and get that win. So it's just one of those what if situations.
Yeah, we always think, that what if. And then when you look at who did take the shot, Caleb
Right.
Love has made the big shots.
For sure.
They say that he lives for those moments. And everybody in the 70,000 people there probably thought he was going to get the ball. So you're probably correct. And that timeout was we had a few coaches in that timeout drawing up some things. So it was a little hectic over there in that sideline. So, it is kind of interesting to see what the play really was.
For sure. But at the end of the day, Kansas, they did come out obviously winning by 3 there. Like I told you last spot, like I was a big Kansas fan in middle school and high school. So I'm happy to see it, but I really actually was rooting for UNC in that one. I like the underdog story. The last thing I want to say about this game was there wasn't any big time scores. I think the highest score was 15, and I think 4 or 5 guys tied with 15 points, but it didn't have that. I'm taking over this national championship game. I'm cementing myself as, with a legacy. I mean, Remy Martin came through big a few times. McCormick, like you said before, just dominated that little stretch, but it's just kind of nobody really took it by the throat and just made that game theirs, which I think was part of the beauty of it too, is just kind of some team basketball guys filling in for each other. Love didn't have a great night. He was getting help from other guys that don't necessarily have games like that all the time. So I thought that was cool, but also interesting that nobody scored over 15.
Yeah, I think we had those guys who tried to put their stamp on the game. It just wasn't there. And I really, I was looking at some of Caleb Love's shots, and they all seemed short yesterday. And you wonder if, the emotion from that Duke game, there's definitely a lot of emotion from that game. And then, you're going into that game, Monday night, heavy legs as that game gets going. It's let your shot be short.
Right.
But again, both teams, great seasons. And at the end of the year, only one team can win. And it's the Jayhawks this time.
For sure. And I just had to go look up who even won most outstanding player, because I never heard. And looking at the box score, you can't figure it out. But Agbaji did end up winning it. Usually you can watch the game, you're like, that's the guy. And I just watching the game, I'm like, could be McCormick because of his stretch, could have been Agbaji, could have been Remy Martin. I had to go double check that I knew who it was. All right, well, I think we're going to take a quick break, get an ad in, and then we will be right back. All right, so we are back. We just finished up talking about the Final Four, and now we're going to move into some Timberwolves specific talk. So last time that we talked, that would have been right before the Wolves played Denver? Toronto, right before Toronto. Okay, so since then, they lost to Toronto in a game that they had a big lead, blew the big lead, and then proceeded to get blown out, which was not fun. They chose to not play any defense there. Part of it I get, you're at the end of a long road trip, or in the middle of a long road trip, you're trying to you're tired, you played some tough games. I would have loved to see them come out and take that game by the throat and just, that would have really helped their 6 seed odds. Obviously, they didn't end up getting that one. But they bounced back. They beat Denver, a really good win against the Nuggets there. And then they also just won against Houston, which is a game that you would think they dominate, and they pretty much did until the fourth quarter. And then that game ended up being a lot closer than it ever should have been. So what are your takeaways from those 3 games that have happened since we last talked? And just is there anything that I guess stood out to you that you were like, okay, this is good. It's going to be good for the playoffs. This is not so good. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, when you look at the Toronto game, as we talked on our last episode, with Nick and Chris knowing each other so well, I think even when I was watching the game, I heard they went out to dinner the night before the game. So, them knowing each other so well, you knew it was going to be one of those fights where a team was going to go on a run. The other team's going to come back on their run. As we always say, the NBA is a game of runs. Basketball in itself is a game of runs. Cat came out, started real quick. He's really, really quick in his first halves of games, able to get going. But Siakam and Van Fleet and that team, their execution is just so well. They execute the ball so well. And the aggressiveness that they played on the defensive end, I think it kind of got to the Wolves a little bit. They're a very aggressive Eastern Conference team. They like to get up in you. They use a lot of hands. There's a lot of non-calls going on in those games. So you look like you had some players frustrated on the court. Then as the game proceeded, it seemed like Anthony, he's just handling that ball out there, had a lot of stagnant offense going on in that game.
Right.
So that's got to keep the ball moving, take those open shots when you can, and just keep the ball moving, keep players moving. Once the team had a chance to settle in and guard, they were really good.
And the other aspect of that, like you said, Toronto's just a good Eastern Conference team. They're fighting for playoff position too at that time. They're trying to solidify themselves as that 6th seed. I think they've pretty much done that now. They're like 2.5 games up on the Cavs, but at that time, they weren't necessarily in that spot locked up like that. So they were trying to get that locked up. They had a lot to fight for. I think it's just a really bad matchup for the Timberwolves too. When you got long athletic guys that can switch, and when the Wolves decide to just let guys shoot open shots, like teams are going to hit them. Obviously there's some luck involved with shooting that high a percentage, but when you're giving them clean looks like that, you can't imagine that they're going to shoot 35%. Like they're going to hit more than their average if you're letting them shoot with nobody near you. So it was a bad loss. I also just think it's a really bad matchup.
Yeah, I agree more with the matchup. I mean, it was definitely a bad loss, but when I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the players on the court, it is a bad matchup. They don't really go big. You have Cat out there guarding, these small, actually, they're probably small forwards if you really had some real bigs on the team. But again, that's that positionless basketball that we talk about. Everyone loves to play it. Toronto's going to spread the floor and they're going to shoot threes, and it. So, you have to make multiple plays on defense and try to run those 3-point shooters off the line. But they're going to make sure that ball keeps moving, and they work on it a lot every day. And both teams do the same thing. They work on, driving that ball and moving it and taking those open threes. So, you're kind of mirroring yourself when you're playing them. So you got to be ready.
For sure. The Denver game was a lot better. I shouldn't say we as if I'm part of the team. The Timberwolves, the game was close for a lot of parts, and they actually did give up the lead there for a little bit, but it seemed like they were always in control of that game pretty much from the get-go. And I just thought it was a really great game. Obviously, Nikola Jokic himself had a dominating performance. I'm pretty sure he ended up with 35, 37, 38, 19 and 8, just dominant. But, he was a +4, and in the minutes that he sat, the Timberwolves beat the Nuggets by 10. So when the supporting cast around Jokic isn't that good, it's gonna be a lot harder for them to win. And that's kind of what he's been dealing with all season. But I think the reason the game was even bigger than that was it kept your 6th seed hopes alive. You had to win that game. I don't know if you for sure had to, but it would have been almost impossible to make that 6th seed.
It's a big win.
And it's still a long shot, but there's still light there at the end of the tunnel. So that was huge. I thought Cat had a really good performance too. He even dealt with some foul trouble, but still was able to get 37 points, and he shot the ball really well too. He actually shot some threes, which was good. He hasn't been shooting threes lately. So I thought overall really good win. It was cool to see. The biggest thing I thought outside of Cat just playing well, Cat always shows up to play against those big name, the Embiids and Goberts and Jokic's, but D'Angelo Russell didn't have a great game the last 3 quarters, but that first quarter and even part of that second quarter, it was good to see him get some shots up because he had not been scoring the ball well, like at all lately. And he needed to, the Wolves need him to get into a rhythm as they're going into the playoffs. And heading into that Denver game, he had scored 13, 4, 15, 6, 18, 16, 6. He hadn't scored 20 points since March 1st. That was the last time he scored 20 points before that game. So it's good to see him get back into a rhythm in that one.
Yeah, it was good to see him get back in rhythm. And it was funny because I mentioned his name in our first episode, and you kind of like said, D'Angelo. And I didn't, I didn't get it. And then I was watching that game and it said he'd averaged 11 points over his last 11 games. And I was like, oh, that's why I got that look.
Yeah.
Then he comes out and he came out, him and Cat in the first quarter again. I think they had 28 of the first, I think it was 40 points in the first quarter. And I think the two of them scored 28 of those 40 those 40 points. And he shot the ball well. He was able to get downhill. I thought Cat shot the ball well. He played aggressively, taking the ball to the hole. And, I think that the tone of the game was set by our tone setter, who is Patrick Beverley, right from the beginning, defensively on the point guard, up under him, making life miserable. And he just set the tone for the game. And the bench as well. I thought the bench came in. I think that was Beasley's first game back.
Yep.
And he came in, played well, had a strong game, and it was a big win. It was a big win. And as you said, Denver, they came back. They did take the lead. But Ant in the fourth quarter, he was
woke up,
kind of trying to find his time. And the fourth quarter came, and he was able to put up a good showing in the fourth quarter and have a solid game.
It's crazy to me when you think Anthony Edwards can just sleepwalk through an entire game. Then you get to the fourth quarter, step back three. He had all 5 of his shots, scored 14 points. I'm waiting for that to go. I'm just waiting for that to translate all game long, right. And we've seen it a couple times. That's when he's dropped 48 points against Golden State, 40 points against Phoenix last year. I wonder, because I feel like Anthony Edwards is a big moment, it's right, it's go time, I'm ready to go. I'm really excited to see playoff Anthony Edwards, see how dominant, how motivated he is to go out and win those games, because I think he likes those big moments. I'm ready to see how he looks in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm ready to see that too. And I think that, he does like the big moments, but I think he's also he's seeing how these playoff teams are playing him, and right. The physicality of the game has turned up. What has surprised me is how many points we're giving up.
Right.
We're scoring a lot of points, but we're still giving up a lot of points. And as you get into playoff basketball, you don't see the free flow as much as you do throughout the regular season. So it's going to come down to that half court executing your offense, and being able to make tough shots and tough plays versus tough defense. So I look forward to Ant, figuring it out over these, last 3 games and coming in during the playoffs and ready to go.
Yeah. And I totally think I think the biggest thing is, like you said, the defense. We talked about this last time. They've been kind of mixing up the coverages, trying to figure out what they can do. I think that's been some of it. They've gone to some zone lately, but then a lot of it has just been like, they haven't woken up to like play defense, or they've been getting comfortable and getting stagnant with their rotating and their Xing out and the scrambling. I think a big thing is Jaden McDaniels looks like he's on his way back. He hasn't played yet, but as of yesterday on Monday, they upgraded him to doubtful for tonight's game on the injury report. And then today they upgraded him from doubtful to questionable on the injury report. So I mean, I'd be surprised if he plays tonight, but I would be kind of surprised if he doesn't play in the Wolves' next game, which is on Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday.
Sunday,
yes.
Right. So
Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, yeah.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't play on Thursday, and I'd be shocked if he doesn't play Sunday, because I think they want to get him some game action. I mean, as long as he's healthy to go, you're not going to force him to go if he's not healthy. But the upgrading, I mean, he's been playing in scrimmages. I mean, the upgrades on the injury report make it seem like they're comfortable with where he's at. And maybe it's just more of like, how's his conditioning? And you probably have some sort of like minutes restriction and whatnot, but like, that's one of your better defenders on your team, a really versatile defender, long. He can, make hay with some of those guards. He can also be a weak side rim protector, and he just can do a lot of things on defense. And that, I mean, there's no question the Wolves have been missing him and his impact over these past, handful of games that he's missed.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I would think that they would have to, get him some playing time, and, hopefully he might get a few minutes, but hopefully he is back Thursday and Sunday, just to get his legs under you. I mean, you have to get that gameplay in there. And then, right. If, you're jumping right into, hopefully we make the 6th and you're jumping into the playoffs, you get a little more time to rest.
Right.
But if he's, in the playing game, then you have to be ready to play. So I'm sure that they'll figure it out, get his wind and everything right, get his legs right, and see where we go from there. Because yes, he is definitely needed on the court, but that wingspan on that body of his, I mean, I told you, he's the longest person I've probably ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
What I did notice in that Denver game, it seemed like Cat on those ball screens, he was getting up. He was getting up a little higher on those ball screens. So it might've been something that they adjusted to. Yeah. And there was a part in that game. It was funny. I was laughing because the assistant coach, I don't know which assistant coach it was, you can hear him during the game. He is yelling for whoever, I don't know which player it was, but there was a 3-point shooter in the corner, and he is screaming, "Do not leave him. Do not
stay home. Stay home.
Stay home." That was it. Stay home. Stay home.
Mike Honori was screaming. I thought it was Finch at first, and I look at Finch and he's not saying anything. Mike Honori was screaming, "Stay home," and they just didn't stay home. They did not stay home. They just
throw the ball to the guy 3-pointer. I was like, So knowing your assignments, knowing the personnel on the court, and what you're supposed to do, it's very important, especially as we get into the playoffs here.
For sure. And yeah, I think Cat too has been like, I think he's had a big focus on when he is playing up at the level of the screen of trying to get the guards to go east-west instead of, going north-south. And he's done good sometimes, and then sometimes not so good. But yeah, I did notice that too, is he's just a lot higher on that too. So then they played Houston, and the Houston game started out great. I mean, they had 80 points in the first half. Did they hit 80?
It was actually,
I'm trying to think if it was 80 or 78. They had 80 points in the first half.
It was 80. Yes. Because the final score was 139 to 132. I mean, like it's
and that was it was a pretty bad fourth quarter for the Wolves. They only scored 23, and they still ended up 139. So they entered the fourth quarter with 113 points. 116 points. Or no, 116 points. They were on pace for like 150, and then they didn't quite get 150, got 139. But the problem was they let Houston score 40 points in that fourth quarter and take what was like a 27-point lead. at one point, I think 27, something like that, down to a 7-point lead. They only won by 7.
Yeah, you got to close that game out, and you just, we can't let it get, within 15, 20 points when you have that lead. It's more about focusing on closing the game out. You have other guys playing in the game. They have to come in and make sure that they're putting their identity on the game as well, and make sure that you leave out of there, you got the win, but you want to get that big win and feel good about yourself going home to a 3-game home stretch to finish out the season. It was the last road game,
Right.
so the way to finish up with that W, but you still want to keep that separation, the separation in the score there.
For sure. And like we said, last away game. So you're at the end of a road trip. I think they played like 4 games on the road. So that's part of it. But still, like that's the team with the worst record in the NBA. But I mean, at the same time, we want to talk bad matchup thing. And I know we've dominated the Rockets before, but like they got athletes. If you are not energized, I mean, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., Josh Christopher, Jayshawn Tate. I mean, you just go down the entire list. They got just quick, athletic guys. Kenyon Martin Jr., Usman Garuba. That's all who played. Or I guess Şengün, and he's like the one exception on that roster that played that isn't like a freak athlete. So
Right.
the Wolves being a little bit tired, maybe underselling those guys. They had energy and the Wolves didn't have enough. And that's on the Wolves. You got to be ready to play. That's not like an excuse. Like you got to show up to play no matter how bad the team is. I mean, the Wolves lost 2 games to Orlando this year. Orlando's a bottom dweller in the standings too. They know they have to show up. They didn't.
Yeah, they would love those 2 games from Orlando back right now too.
Yeah, they would love those couple games, a couple other games they'd love back, but I'm sure there's other teams. I'm sure Philly would love that double OT game against the Wolves back, or triple
Right.
OT or whatever it was. And yeah, I mean, you kind of get that. I'm not like you drop some games here, you win some games you shouldn't here. I'm not overly. I mean, it sucks because you're 2 games back from the 6th seed right now, but I totally understand too. It's like that's how the NBA works. Sometimes you
Yeah,
just
you
lose
hit it.
games you
You hit it
shouldn't.
right there. You hit it right there. That's how the NBA works. You lose games. Guys just, everyone thinks you should win that game and you just don't have it that day. And you always got to remember that those guys on the other team are pros too.
Yeah,
It's like,
for sure. The other thing I want to talk about when it comes to the Wolves is I remember just watching the Wolves over the past handful of seasons. They always would say on the broadcast, and whoever I'd talk to would say, you're becoming a good team when you win your home games. And the Wolves this season are 25-13 at home. So they've done their job winning those home games for the most part. And I didn't know how much I believed in that or like how big of a thing that was. But obviously the Wolves now with one of the best records they've had in a long time, they've been winning their home games. What do you think the importance of winning at home means for a team?
oh, it's the most important thing. You always want to take care of your home court. I mean, that's, you practice there, you spend a lot of time there, your fans are there. It's like someone coming into your house and stealing something. You want to play well at home. You want your fans to be involved. That's why you always say that 6th man is your fans. And the Timberwolves fans have always been supportive. And when a team's playing well, they're even more supportive. And the Target Center can get very loud. And we have an exciting team right now. They play together. They move the ball. They're exciting. So winning at home, it's really important. That's the road is just so hard. You just don't know what's going to go on in the road. There's just, and again, you're in unfamiliar territory. You're going in, the other team, their fans are on you the whole game. Now, personally, I loved playing on the road. I loved the fans being against you, but I also loved playing at home, especially at the Target Center. So taking care of that home court it's one of the most important things, especially going into the playoffs. You're going to have a game at home, hopefully, and you want to win that. You want to have your fans behind you and be able to get that W.
I mean, for sure they're going to have a play-in game at home. They're at worst going to be the 7th seed. Right. So they actually have if they lose, they'll still have another game at home. So really, they're guaranteed two more, at least 2 home games. Because if they win the play-in, then they got that one plus 2 more in the series. They lose the play-in, they have another one at home, and if they won that one, then they'd have 2 more home games. So, yeah, I think I've always, like I said, I didn't really believe it, but I get it. I get it now, and hearing you talk about it, helps me get it a little bit more. And now I'm just kind of like scanning through the Timberwolves record at home lately, and I don't have an exact number, but just kind of looking at the wins and losses. I think a lot of their winning at home has been happening lately, outside of a couple of games against they lost to Phoenix at home, but they've been taking care of business against pretty much everybody else at home, which has been great to see that too. So hopefully they can, if they get into that 6 or 7 seed, I mean, maybe they do lose both road games, they go down 2-0, but you come back, maybe you can steal 2 games and force at least a 6-game series. Should be really cool because, I mean, when's the last time the Wolves have really made any noise in playoffs? Like when they were the 8th seed, sure, they won 1 game at home, but that was the least inspiring first round series I could imagine. That wasn't a sweep. They didn't look good at all in that series against Houston 4 years ago. So hopefully they look better than that this year. I think they hopefully will match up with opponents better as long as they don't have to face Phoenix in the first round. But yeah, just overall really cool to see them be taking care of those home games.
Yeah, it is really cool to win at home. And like I said, you got 3 games to finish up your season at home. And if you have a play-in game, it's going to be at home. So you're going to get some time at home for a while too. So it's always a good thing there. So some home cooking, all those good things that home brings to you.
Okay. Just a heads up, people will know this by the time they listen to this, but Jaden McDaniels actually is playing in tonight's game. I don't know minutes wise or whatever, but he will be playing. So it'll be interesting to see what he gets tonight and, how he plays. I mean, I'm sure he'll be pretty restricted, but yeah, I think that it will turn out to be a good thing that he does get those minutes. And we already kind of talked about that. All right. Any last thoughts on the Wolves before we turn this over and go through our all NBA teams quick?
Yeah, I just hoping that they turn that defensive intensity up and we get some lower scores from our opponents. Right. We can score 130, but let's keep the other team to about 100. So we don't have to worry about it. And it's all going to come down to the defensive end as we move down the road here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm with you. I hope the defense starts to kick it up a notch. Let's go into these all NBA teams. So I had to pull up my phone to get them because I wrote them down when I was at work on my break today. So you want to? I think we'll just start and kind of go through.
Okay, maybe hold on 1 second. Let me start by saying.
You go for it.
My son. I had to pull Tyson into this and, had to ask him his thoughts on it. So, these are, we agree.
A culmination.
It's a culmination of our teams. So you want me to go first?
Yeah. And I'll say this to piggyback off what you say. I don't watch enough of every team to have a perfect answer. So I do have to turn to people I trust that watch some of these other teams and kind of get their opinions. But I feel like I watch enough and I know enough to give a general one. But again, I don't have a vote. I'm glad I don't have a vote because it would probably be not very good. I think we should go at it like this. I think we'll each give a guard off of our first team. And then if we agree, if I give a guard and you have the same one, we'll talk about them quick. Then we'll go to the next one. And if we disagree, then we'll each give ours that way. So yeah, I can go ahead and start first. Okay. I have Luka Doncic on my first team as a guard. Is Luka on your first team as a guard?
He is not.
Okay. So I guess my My thing is Luka started really slow, and I think a lot of people, I mean, I know that, I acknowledge that, but I think he's played at such an elite level lately, and his team's been winning basketball games, and they've been, at first they were in danger of falling to like the 7th seed, and we're like, well, maybe the Wolves can pass the Mavs, maybe they don't have to pass the Nuggets. And now, I mean, the Mavs are the 4 seed, and they're only a game back from the Warriors for the 3 seed. So they've just been playing excellent basketball. And Luka's been dominant. He's been defending, and he's been just playing at an elite level. So I have him on my first team. You said you don't have him on your first team. I'm assuming he's on one of your teams at some point, but
He is.
well, okay.
He is.
Go ahead and give your first guard on your team.
Ja Morant.
Ja Morant is not on my first team. He is not on my first team. He was, and then I did switch him. And the reason was, and I'll say this quick, and then you can give your piece on Ja. I just looked at games played and how good his team has played without him. And I don't think that's a knock on him, but I don't think it strengthens his case. So that's why I put Ja. I have him on my second team. I'll say that. That's why I put Ja down there instead of on the first team. But say your piece on Ja, because he's been incredible.
Yeah, well, we could have switched there because I have Luka on my second team. Okay, so and Ja on my first team. I just think Ja he is an outstanding talent. I think that he has brought, and he has a great supporting cast, but he has brought the Memphis Grizzlies to a whole new level. They are an exciting team to watch. The guy plays with pace. He shoots the ball well. And he is athletic at his height, one of the most athletic players that I have witnessed in a long time at his size. And he has no fear. There's just no fear. You made a great point. And this is where I was stuck with it. He has missed, his team's 21-2 without him. I mean,
Yeah.
that's in itself, you wonder, like, how is this team 21-2 without him? But he's just been pushing the needle, raising the needle the whole time he's been there. And I just gave it to him.
Yeah. And I don't think like they're a better team without him, but they're still a really good team without him, where some of these players, like, you remove them and like it all tumbles down. I want you to give your second guard on your first team, because I'm interested to see if we got the same guy.
Devin Booker.
Okay, we got the same guy. Devin Booker, leading scorer on the best team in the league, just been fantastic all season. He's also been, I think he's only missed like, 10-ish games or so. But he's just been dominant. And when you're on the best, the best player on the best team, or maybe you think CP3 is, I think obviously Devin Booker's been playing more than Paul has. So he's just been dominant. And like, he's in the MVP conversation. I'd say he's in the top 5 there. He's not going to win it, but he's been fantastic this year.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. He's top 5 in MVP voting. Just an outstanding player, outstanding shooter. Chris Paul goes down. He's running the point. They don't miss a beat. He just kept that team in the first place throughout. And Phoenix is a tough out. They're a tough out for.
They are a
right now.
well-oiled machine right now.
Monty Williams does a great job with them.
All right, I will go ahead. So my guards were Luka and Booker. Yours were John Booker. I will go ahead, give my first forward. I put Giannis Antetokounmpo on my first team. Obviously, MVP candidate. I see you nodding your head. MVP candidate, top 3, clear. I think no questions asked. He's on the NBA first team, and I think he's going to end up there. I think it'll be unanimous. I don't see anything really happening with him not being on there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I have Giannis, same person. He's the beast. I mean, I just watched him this week, just in a few games. I mean, he can get wherever he wants on the floor. I look at him sometimes, and I think back to KG playing, and Giannis plays with that scowl on his face, and he plays hard. He'll run you over. He's playing with emotion, defensive. He made a block last week against Embiid that I swear was a goaltend until I watched the replay. I mean, that was one of the most impressive plays I'd ever seen, you know, at an NBA game. I mean, he from one side and leave and just blocked the shot with his left hand. Just an unbelievable talent. And he's just a winner. He's just learned how to win, and he's just gotten better every year.
Yeah, that's the thing, is he's still getting better. He won back-to-back MVPs. Now he's getting better at different facets of his game, which is cool. Who is your other forward? Because I think there might be controversy here, but it kind of depends how you approach this. So I want to see your other forward.
Well, the controversy that you're talking about would be if I do positions or if I do positionless, you know. Right. So I put LeBron James in.
Okay. I do not have LeBron James on my first team. So give your argument for LeBron on your first team.
He's leading that bad team the way he is. I mean, at 30, what's he, 38, 37, 38? You know, he's scoring crazy. He's doing all the little things. Unfortunately, injuries have derailed that team, and old age, I'm thinking as well. But LeBron is still LeBron. I mean, he's bringing it when he's on the court. I think he may be done for the season now. But
I don't know. He needs 2 more games to win the scoring title. You have to play 58 and he's at 56. There's 3 games left. He's not going to play that one. So if he plays the last 2, then he can get that scoring title, which, I mean, I think he cares about it more than he would ever admit that he cares about it. And so I think he might play those last 2 games. But the problem is he still has to do good because Embiid is right there, like a 10th of a point behind him. So he'd have to he can't just play in those games and sit because that'll drop his average. He has to actually go get buckets in those last 2 games if he wants to win it.
Yeah, and I think when you said that scoring title, I think that may be one thing he's never had, right? And
yeah, I don't know if he has.
Days, I don't think he's had the scoring
title.
I mean,
and because he's had to play, Kobe was in his prime when he's young, right. And then, Dwayne Wade was scoring there in 06.
James Harden. I mean,
yeah. So I don't know if he has, but
he's been playing for a long time, but he's had some scores that he's played during that time.
Right. Okay, so I do not have LeBron. I have Embiid as a forward. I went the how the ballot will actually they allow him to do that this year, so I did it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. But I just think, we talked about this last week, Embiid is top 3 MVP voting. I just hate to put him on second team. So I got Embiid there at my forward spot. He's just been dominant. He draws fouls, which, a lot of times, even myself, we hate it, but if they didn't call it, he wouldn't do it. He's doing it because they call it and they give it to him. But even without that, he gets fouled a lot too, just because he is so dominant that you can't stop him. So you just foul him and hope he misses free throws, because that seems like a better avenue for you. So he's just been dominant. Like I said, second in the league in scoring. He's also rebounded the ball really well, and he passes the ball well. He shoots the 3 well, and he's just an all-around fantastic player.
Yeah, he's had a great year. He hasn't been injured. That's been good. You can see where he's really changed his body. He looks stronger. He's running the floor better. He's not on the floor as much as he has been in the past. He used to always be on the floor. And he has had a great season, just doing outstanding things.
Okay. So he's not on your team. You can get to him later. Who's your center then? Or maybe he is your center.
He is my center.
Okay. So you have him.
He is my center. Yes.
You have him over Nikola Jokic as that center on the first team. Okay. Yes. So we kind of talked about Embiid. I'll go with my center. I do have Jokic, and I have Embiid sitting next to him at that other forward spot. Jokic, I think, has been fantastic this year. He's ridiculous. You look at his averages. He doesn't score as many points as, Embiid does, but he just rebounds the ball at a historic rate. He's scoring 27 points a game. He's grabbing 13.7 rebounds and dishing out 8 assists. Just ridiculous. his team without him would probably be like bottom 5 in the league. Obviously, it's due to injury. You know, if Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. back, Jokic's stats don't look as good. Team's probably better, though. So I just think he's been super impactful, the most impactful player in the league this year. And he's been just dominant in every facet. But their team, you know, like they're still fighting to stay in the playoffs. They're not, you know, they might fall into the play-in if the Wolves get lucky. So, but I think he's just been too good to leave him off. So that's why I had to put Embiid and Jokic next to each other on that first team.
Yeah, I'm not. I have a positionless one too. He's on my first team in the positionless one. So the way that you have written up your first team, you know, I went the old school guard.
Right. And we didn't define the rules.
And we didn't define. So my positionless, I do have them both on the first team, but you know, I went with Embiid as a center. Just, you know, I just want to see this guy hopefully win the MVP. I mean,
for sure.
You know, he's had a great season. So, and you can't go wrong with Jokic either. He's just outstanding.
Yeah, so good. So good. So let's go to second team now. So, well, let's review quick. I had Luka, Booker, Giannis, Embiid, Jokic, and you had Ja, Booker, Giannis, LeBron, and Embiid.
Right.
Okay. And then we already talked about this. I have Ja on my second team. You had Luka on your second team. So we've talked about them. We'll move on to our second guards on the second team. I actually have Chris Paul here. And I know Chris Paul has missed some games, but he still played 63 games. So he is well over the limit to, you know, qualify for, like if he was going to win the scoring title, he's over that 58 number. Team's 51-12 when he plays. Best team in the league. And he is, I'd say, almost as important to that team as Devin Booker is. And I just think he's been fantastic this year. So he's my second guard on my second team. Who you got?
Well, Luke is the second guard on my second team, and Chris Paul is my first guard.
Okay.
Yes. So
I guess I didn't order mine. I guess I just was like, these are the two guards, these are the two forwards. So I didn't like put them in order, but so you said
it was your second one. That's why I had to come back at you like that. So
got you.
I didn't.
But I do think Ja has played better than CP3. So I guess I would say CP3 is the second guard on my second All NBA team.
Yeah. So I have Chris Paul on there, and you said it right, man. I mean, he's still doing this. He's still doing this. He's still doing this at a high level. And you know, I actually thought his Houston days, he was kind of winding down. It was like going to be the end, and get out to Phoenix like the rest of the old people, and he's coming back, man. He's bouncing back in that sunshine out there. So he's having a great last year, great this year.
Who do you got for a forward on that second team?
Jason Tatum.
I got Jason Tatum too. He's my first forward on my second team. Again, Boston, kind of like Utah, or not Utah, Dallas started slow. And I mean, Boston has been fantastic lately. They've jumped all the way up to the 2 seed now, and they've been hot, like so good. They're tough. They are great defensively. They hit shots. They are just like a well-oiled machine right now too. I mean, some people might have them like their favorites out of the East now too. I've seen that a number of times. I don't know where I stand on all that. I haven't really sat down and thought about it, but right now they're a half game up on the Bucks and 76ers for that 2 seed, but the lowest they could fall is to the 4 seed. So they're going to have home court advantage, but Jason Tatum, obviously the best player on that team, and he's been great. You got anything to add?
Oh, he's been great. He's been doing everything. And it's really funny, something you just mentioned, you know, Dallas making that run late and Boston making that run late, 2 brand new coaches on those teams. Okay, you know, it takes
almost
time.
Like it takes a little time to get something going. It takes a little time to get stuff going, to understand what's, you know, going on. You know, what's the coach trying to do? He's trying to figure out the team, where people play, and then they get it, and the team starts rolling. And you know, Jason's had a great year. You know, him and that whole team, they've just been playing well as of late. And right after the All-Star break, they just took it on hard. Yeah, and Jason's played in like, I think 70 something of the 74 games, and they got 3 left, I think. So like he hasn't missed, like he's been there too, which also helps his case because he's available and he's ready to play. So he's my first one as well. I'll throw out my second one. And you're gonna notice that someone's missing after I say this. I have DeMar DeRozan on my second team as my second forward. And he's kind of slipped a little bit, especially his team has slipped a little bit at the end here. But again, like I just said with Tatum, DeRozan has played 73 games. He's averaging 28 points a game, and he's hit huge shots all season. He's been the best player for the Bulls this year. And I mean, the Bulls right now are the 5 seed, so they're not like they dropped off into the play-in tournament. I think they've pretty much locked up. They could possibly fall to 7, but they're pretty much locked up into either 5 or 6. And I think he's just been fantastic.
I went with Kevin Durant. I don't know.
Can't go wrong with Kevin Durant.
Has he played enough games?
I have to. I don't know. He's played less than LeBron. He's played 51, and he's had a fantastic season. I will just tell you this: I don't have Kevin Durant on my ballot at all.
Okay.
Not purely because of the games. He's played 51, which that's not a lot more than half of the season. But the other thing is the Nets are just. They're in the play-in tournament. They're pretty much. I mean, they could get the 8 seed. Otherwise, it'll be 9 or 10. And like, even with him, they're 32-19. Even in the games that he's played, it's not like he's played fantastic and they're like 45-6 when he plays. And then they're just bad when he's been out. Like, they still are losing games with him. And it's been a whole weird whirlwind of Kyrie Irving and James Harden and the trade and all this just annoying stuff going on. But when he has played individually, he's been fantastic. I just don't think the team has been good enough and that he has played enough games to qualify for this. But he's been one of the 15 best players in the game, undoubtedly. But I got to take it all into account.
No, I totally understand that. And what I took into account was before he went down, I think they were in first place.
Yeah.
I think they were in first place before he went down, and then James did his thing and decided he wanted to come to Philly and stop playing. Kyrie's been on his thing all season long, but I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm not going to disagree with you with what you said. You great points there. I just look at KD. He's a bad man. He's
third in the league in scoring. He's literally like 0.7% on his 3-point percentage from being 50, 40, 90 this year.
Yeah. I mean,
that efficiency, scoring 30 points a game, is insane. It's insane. And he's been fantastic. But I don't have him on my second team. So you said both your guards, you had CP3 and Luka, and then you had Tatum and Durant, and I have Tatum and DeRozan. And then we get to the center spot, and I'm assuming you have Jokic at the center spot here.
No, I didn't put him on. Yeah. Yes. He's at the center spot. Yes.
Okay. Yes. And we've already talked about Jokic. He's been fantastic. Yes. So since I haven't beaten Jokic on the first team, you got Cat there, huh? I got Cat at that second team center spot. I think he's pretty much kind of locked up. We talked about this before with like the Zach Lowe thing. But I think he's also just meant more to his team, and his team is like outperforming expectations, where like Rudy Gobert, who would be the only other guy I would consider, I think, at this spot, has like they've underachieved, and there's like some drama going on in Utah. So I got Cat on the second team as that center. Do you want to add anything to Cat, or do you want to wait later and we'll see if he's on your third team, or what do you want to do with that?
We can wait.
Okay. So I got Ja, CP3, Tatum, DeRozan, Towns. You had Luka, CP3, Luka, Tatum, Durant, and Jokic. Yeah. All right, third team. My first guard on my third team is Steph Curry. Steph Curry's had a really good season. He's kind of slipped a little bit, but the team's still really good. They're 45-19 when he plays. They're sitting right now as the third team in the West. Maybe they'll fall to 4. But I just think that they've been really good. Right now he's out with an injury too.
Yes.
But I don't know exactly what the timetable is, but it sounds like he'll be back at some point
For
in the playoffs.
They said for the playoffs, yeah.
So, yeah, I think he's played pretty good, but the team's just good and he's their best player. So I thought he deserved a spot because he's still Steph Curry. It's just like, if you're not like MVP Steph Curry, you drop down a little bit. It's like he's like having a bad year, but he's just been so great that it just seems a little bit worse.
Yeah, so I have Steph Curry there as well. So we do agree sometimes. So it happens.
Every now and then.
Steph is he's a great player, shooter. He is the leader of that team. Unfortunately, he got hurt. It's crazy, Thompson comes back, Draymond gets hurt. Draymond comes back, Steph.
I think they played what did they say they played together?
11 minutes?
11 minutes, like something like that.
15 minutes, something like that.
With those 3. Crazy. Yeah. Who do you got as your other guard on that third team?
So I put this other guard on my third team, Donovan Mitchell.
I did also, but it was pretty tough for me because Trey Young was the other player I was kind of like hesitant about. Hawks are the 8th seed and Utah is the 6th seed. Possibly could fall to 7, possibly could jump up to 5. Trey Young's been fantastic this year too, so I want to give him a little bit of a shout out. He's 6th in scoring, shooting the ball really well, like he always does, passing the ball really well also. I think he's leading the league in assists. No, he's 3rd. He's 3rd in the league in assists. So yeah, but I did go with Donovan Mitchell. Tell me why you went with Donovan Mitchell.
He's just a talent, as a great talent. He's the leading scorer on the team. He does so many things on the court. His specialty is the offense, with his step backs and his Euro steps getting to the hole, but total player. He leaves it on the court every time he's on the court, and he just gives his all. I just thought he was deserving. Utah, as we said, they've been on this little roller coaster, but when he's been out there, he's been consistent.
Yeah, and I totally agree with everything you said. He's played 65 games and they won 40 of them. So he's been impactful, best player on that team. So yeah, I think that he's been great. So he did end up getting it over Trey Young for me, but I did go back and forth a little bit on that one. I'll go to my first forward on this one. And so on this last team, I really considered, do I put KD and LeBron, or do I just say neither has played enough? Both teams aren't good enough that I'm just going to just drop them off and just give some love to some other guys because it's for fun and I don't really care. I don't have the actual vote.
You don't get a vote, right?
I didn't have to think too hard about it, but I did struggle back and forth. I decided to not put KD or LeBron on at all. Mostly, what we talked about, the games played and all that. And you gave them their flowers. So I want to, give a couple flowers to some other people. So my first forward on this team is actually Jimmy Butler. Miami Heat are sitting at the 1 seed, and to be a 1 seed and not have, I feel like it'd be highway robbery to not have somebody on an all NBA team. And he has played really good this season. Obviously he's not like a great scorer, but he's still scoring 21 points per game. He's played 55 games. So he's played he's played less than LeBron, but his team's the 1 seed. LeBron's team is like the 10 seed. So I had to go with Jimmy here. He's been really good, and the Heat are really good, and they deserve somebody on there. So that's kind of my thing, is he's their best player. They're the 1 seed. They have to have somebody. So I'm going to give it to Jimmy Butler. No matter how much Timberwolves fans hate Jimmy Butler, right? You still have to respect that he's a hell of a player.
I went with Jimmy Butler as well in the same spot. And, I've actually seen Jimmy Butler play since he was in college, because I was coaching at Villanova and Villanova Marquette thing there. And I remember Jay Wright asked me, he said, "What do you think about this kid?" I said, "He's going to be a pro." Now, did I think he was going to be the pro that he's become? No, but he's a hell of a player. Guy gives it up on both ends of the court. Yeah, like you said, he's not this great scorer, but he does it. He scores the ball, he passes the ball, he rebounds the ball. He's just that tough-nosed, hardworking player. And I put him in the same spot that you had him.
Perfect. So who is next on your list then?
Demar Derozan.
All right. So then I had Demar there. Anything to add on Demar and the fantastic year that he's had this season?
He is the throwback player. What I love about DeMar DeRozan is he's mid-range DeMar. He's not going to let anyone change what he does. He will shoot a few threes here or there. I was a mid-range guy. I
Right.
came in, it wasn't a big 3-point. The three wasn't big back then. He's a mid-range guy. He makes his shots. And he's a fourth quarter. Just in the fourth quarter, he will just.
He's kind of like the wing version of Chris Paul, mid-range.
Yes.
Fourth quarter. Like he's just got it like that, and he's done a fantastic job doing that this season.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
Okay, so you got DeRozan there. I have Pascal Siakam, another thing where I wanted to give, somebody. And I struggled. I thought there's a couple of people I thought about for this. I thought about putting Brandon Ingram here. He's only played 54 games, but I think he's done a really good job. And the Pelicans have made a run where they were kind of bottoming out at the beginning of the year. Obviously, they made the trade, got CJ McCollum, but I think he's been playing really good. I thought of a couple other guys too, Chris Middleton. He's had a good season. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I ended on Pascal Siakam. I think that he's the best. Obviously, I think he's the best player on the Raptors. I think the Raptors have done a really good job this season. Right now, they currently, they sit as that 6th seed. And I think that they've just kind of been on a roll, and he's just deserving of it. I think that he doesn't get enough credit. His trajectory is kind of weird because it was like, okay, Pascal Siakam's just like this guy, boom, wins most improved player. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, he's one of the best players in the league. And now it feels like without his game getting worse, like people have started to think he's worse. So I just want to give him a little bit of love. And since I wasn't putting KD or LeBron, I had a spot for him, especially I was lacking on forward spots because Embiid was a forward on my list.
Right.
But I still had to get Siakam in there.
Yeah, I actually thought about him. I really did think about him but I went with Butler for the reason that you said, the number one team. And, DeRozan, it was really tough there. And I did think about Siakam. Love the way he plays. Like he wasn't hurt last year? He was hurt for a bit.
I could look
coming back. I think he had missed some game. He had missed some time either last year or the year before. And I think that kind of, there.
Both seasons. So last year he missed, I guess, 16 games, and he missed about that amount of games the year before. But he's had, a couple of those injuries where it's like, keeps him out for just a chunk of time. But I feel like when he's out, you really see the impact that he has because he's not there and he's just missing. You can see that missing piece is gone. And then I think people appreciate him a little bit more when he comes back. All right. So I need to know who is your third team center because
it's Cat. Yes.
And I have Gobert just because, I have those other three up there. Right. I want to say that I considered some other guys, I want to say like there are a couple other guys, Bam Adebayo, he's on the best team in the Eastern Conference. And, DeAndre Ayton's on the best team in the league. But when it came down to it, Rudy Gobert is one of the best defensive players of all time. And his impact on that side of the ball is undeniable. And I don't want to think too much about like whose team is it in Utah and they're not passing Gobert the ball. And I don't know if you saw the stat about like Donovan Mitchell only passes Rudy Gobert the ball 2.3 times per game. Passes, not assists, passes. So there's like that whole drama, but he's been really good defensively like he always is. But yeah, Ayton also hadn't played that many games. I thought about Jaren Jackson Jr. for a slight moment because, he's on a really good team. He's been available. He's played 75 of their like 80 games so far, or 79 games. So he's only missed a handful. and he's been a force on defense, and he's been really good on offense. Other guy, Jonas Valanciunas has had a good year, but ultimately, I think Embiid, Jokic, Towns, and Gobert are the clear-cut 4 best centers in the league. And then you kind of drop down a tier. So I'm glad I could get him on there because it just seems like all 4 of those guys of Cat, Gobert, Embiid, and Jokic are in that top 15 of guys. So it's good that I could get him on there. What do you want to say about Cat? Because I didn't really say anything about Cat on the second team. So what do you want to say about Cat?
Yeah, Cat's just taking his game to another level this year. With everything that he's been through over the last year and a half, with family and everything, he's just been able to focus on his game, take it to another level, push the team to another level. He's shooting the ball from 3, outstanding, wins the 3-point contest. He's playing with a great aggression, driving the ball, and he looks really comfortable in Chris Finch's system. And looks like he's having a lot of fun.
Yeah, he for sure looks like he's having a lot of fun, which is cool because, like you said, everything he went through, it's good that he's finding that joy in playing the game. But he also, like we said, the team is just like actually good. They currently are sitting, I think like 11, 12 games over 500 right now. They're 11 games over 500 right now. When Cat has played, they are 43-29 in the 72 games that he's played. He's averaging like 25 points per game. He's almost at 10 rebounds per game. He's at 9.8. I don't think he'll quite get there. The rebounding numbers are just with the style of defense he's played. He's pulled away from the basket a lot more. So I don't think he's gotten to be a worse rebounder. He used to average like 12. I think he's just not with the system. He's just not in the spot to get those rebounds anymore. I think he's a solid passer. We see him kind of go up and down with his passing, tries to get a little bit too fancy. Mm-hmm. And then the numbers kind of suffer a lot of turnovers, and then he kind of gets it together. But and obviously he's the best big man shooter in the league right now. We don't have to talk about Dirk, but in the league right now, nobody better. 41% from deep on high volume is just great. And then he shoots really well from everywhere else on the floor too. Yeah. So he's just a dominant offensive player. And I think I would say he's like good on defense. I think I would say he's good. Like he's an above average defender now in this system, which is good. I mean, don't ask him to play drop defense, but in this, in this aggressive scheme, I'd say he's a good defender, which has always been the knock on him was his defense was bad. So he's been great. Yeah.
And like I said, he played well over this last stretch defensively, and it's just going to get better. As we progress through the season here, the end of the season into the playoffs, and because the games, the defensive intensity is just going to pick up. So he's going to be ready for it. I think that coach has them in the right spots, and the team's going to be ready
for sure. So those are our teams. I'm going to go. I just want to run back through just so people can hear them all again. I'll run through all 3 of my teams quick. First team, I had Luka Doncic, Devin Booker, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, and Nikola Jokic. Second team, I had Ja Morant, Chris Paul, Jason Tatum, DeMar DeRozan, and Karl Anthony Towns. And on the third team, I had Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Jimmy Butler, Pascal Siakam, and Rudy Gobert, with an asterisk saying that KD and LeBron's teams suck and they haven't played enough.
My first team was Ja Morant, Devin Booker, LeBron James, Giannis, Embiid. Second team, Chris Paul, Luka, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Jokic. Third team, Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Jimmy Butler, DeMar DeRozan, and Cat.
So those are our all NBA teams. Doug and I decided that we think next time we sit down to record that we're going to talk about the other awards, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, Coach of the Year. We're going to try and do them all. That one's going to be, I think that I'm going to have to, like we talked about, I think I'm going to have to rely on some other people who have watched some stuff.
Me too.
But I want to formulate my own opinions too within it. But I think that'll be interesting. I just don't want to crowd the show. Plus, like, I'm not fully decided on my MVP yet. So I need these last 3-4 games to see who I'm going to pick, because like, it's so close that like one great performance could just flip it, like, or if one guy's team loses all the rest of their games, like that can, I can be swayed because I'm like on the fence right now. So I won't say between who, but I'm on the fence. So we'll go through those next time, and then we'll talk about, the Wolves games that have happened. By that time, I don't know when we'll record, but by that time we'll have a clearer picture of if the Wolves will be the 6th or the 7th seed. And then we'll just kind of go from there. And then it's playoff time. At least play-in time, but playoff time, hopefully, which like I've never covered the playoffs. Like I didn't start covering the team until after that. And obviously you haven't been podcasting for a playoff run. So it'll be fun to see that. Do you have any last closing thoughts about, the Wolves, the NBA at large, anything before we end today's show?
Yeah, I'm just hoping the Wolves finish this week out. These 3 home games. Let's finish out 3-0, and go into, hopefully the playoffs and not the play-in. But if it's the play-in, let's go into it ready to play, ready to go. Hopefully we go 3-0 and Denver goes 0-3.
Denver can go 1-2 and we can go 3-0 and we're good. But they can go 0-3 too. I don't care. Like they can lose them all. But yeah, even just winning those last 3, you get a little bit of momentum. You get into the playoffs or the play-in or whatever. But like if they win the next 3, that's a 5-game winning streak. Is a little bit of confidence boost kind of going into it. So I think it'd be good. Yeah. Also, Chicago might be fighting for something too. So that might be a tough game. If you win that one, you're feeling pretty good. And that could have, seeding implications. So I'm excited to see.
Chicago definitely is fighting. Chicago is definitely fighting right now. Yeah.
But regardless, I'm just excited for it. But I think that's all we got today. We'll be back, like I said, for sure within the next week. Whenever Doug and I find like we have time or we have something we need to talk about, we'll get it set up. But thank you everybody for listening to the show. If you guys ever have questions, you can always tweet them at me, tweet them at Doug. Then we can answer some questions in the show and stuff like that, things you want us to talk about. But thank you all for listening. This has been the Believe in Timberwolves podcast presented by Bet Online. I'm your host, Brent Hedtke, sitting across from Doug West, and we will be back soon. Peace out.
Peace.